Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley, and today we are honored to have Doris Neely back with us. Welcome, Doris.
Thank you for inviting me back. Thank you.
I love to have you on. For our audience who may not know who Doris is the data entry clerk who uploaded my packet to the CIA archive computer. And she worked with one of my alters who apparently died in October of 1984 in a plane crash. So she's sitting there freaking out that her friend is still alive and talking to her. And that's the underlying. So, and I have no memory of that altar, I'll be honest, but I feel very close to Doris, like I do know her. So there is some underlying emotional confirmation there. So, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know we have had some trying to figure out how to talk about this without getting you in trouble things. So I think what we had decided before was that I would talk about what I remembered and you would say yes or no. that way you don't get in trouble, because we're not wanting anyone to be endangered by a radio show. So does that sound reasonable to you?
Reasonable for me.
Okay. So, what I've been talking about on my show and when I've been interviewed has been the first altar that was massively downloaded after an NSA group used my Remember code. So, I'm going to take a short trip through that altar's life history as I remember it, and you can tell me if I'm remembering correctly or not.
Okay.
Okay. So I was 4 years old, and it was the summer of 1959, and men in green fatigues showed up and took me in a Jeep, one of the open top ones, and I think there were other children in the Jeep with me. And we were driven cross country on Route 66 as far as it went, and then we went other highways to Langley, Virginia. And we were at the Langley Air Force Base. This was before the CIA headquarters was built. So I was kept in a basement that was made to look like a hospital. Does that sound right? And they spent about 2 years doing the mind fracture, which is torturing a child until it separates into like memory bubbles. And my understanding is I had just shy of 2,200 altars when they were done with me. And in technical terms, that would have been a 13 by 13 by 13 cubic array in a hierarchy where the bottom altars would be trained with whatever the top of that array understood. So I have like 13 with each skill set. Now, is that what you remember from my packet? Now, after they got the number of altars that they wanted, they drove me and a couple of other kids to Montauk Point at the Camp Hero base. And we were part of the time tunnel experiments there. They were testing the butterfly effect. And I was real uncooperative. It was that described in my paperwork.
Yes. And how about did you see anything about flies?
About flies? I remember being told to go to a general store, and it was sometime 1880s Wild West, and I was supposed to steal an apple and just bring it back. And that instead of going to the Target at the end of the tunnel, I would escape through holes in the ceiling. And there was an ET that was there, and they would send him to go hunt me down. As I recall the ET, he was a 9-foot tall turtle. He was about 9 foot tall, and he was basically a turtle. And I don't know what his proper name would have been, but their function is the military for the Draco. And that's what I remember. I remember him speaking English because the man who was in charge of Montauk was so angry with me. He was going to put me into the incinerator, and the turtle stopped him. Is that in my file? I can't hear you.
He was a gentle person, turtle, I call him, gentle. I didn't feel that he was. I didn't feel that he was mean spirited.
No, he wasn't mean, but it was like his job to hunt me down when I ran away. Right. It wasn't that he was being mean, it was that they didn't want to lose me.
Right.
Okay. I don't remember flies. I remember being kept in a cage while I was there. And the man running it he was American, and he spoke English, and he was angry all the time. And I kept seeing these holes in the ceiling and while the time tunnel was on, and thought I could get away from these men. I was tired of being tortured, so I was trying to run away. But I would have been like 6 years old at the time. So this is what I remember of it, if that's correct. The look on your face, it doesn't match what was in the report. So, okay. So that one doesn't match. All right. So now I know. But I was there, it feels like about 6 months. And then I was brought back to Langley, and they trained me in my jobs that I was supposed to do. And when I was 9, those of us who graduated were taken to, it was a multiple story building, but I don't know how tall it was, But I remember as we were walking in, you could see a bridge. And we were told we were in New York. So it was a building large enough to have elevators, but it was almost under a bridge. And we walked in the front door and we went to the elevators, and there was one that they wanted us to use, and it was the jump gate to go to Mars, or at least they told us it was Mars. And it took us about 20 minutes to get there. And from that point on, everybody I interacted with spoke German. Is that close to what you had in your report?
You're on the right track.
Okay, I'm on the right track. Okay, when I got to the Germans on Mars, our whole group, none of us spoke German. We barely spoke English. We had been being tortured for the last 5 years. We didn't read or write. The oldest one, I think, was 10 or 11. And there were 12 of us, and we were all put in a barracks together, like we were military already, but we were just little kids. And the Germans decided to put us in school and teach us about their language and their culture and the jobs they wanted us to do. And so I was in school, they called it Schule, for 10 years. And when I graduated, they put me in a plane, and I did, I would fly over Mars, and the computer on the ship, I was chipped into it. I had a chip behind my left ear that connected me to the ship's computer, and I would use the computer to hunt for the ETs we were at war with. And one kind was like a giant ant, and the other kind was like a raptor from Jurassic Park. And the raptors from Jurassic Park like to eat people. But both of the races were as smart or smarter than we were. So sometime was that what was in my report?
Yeah, but do you think that you may be black and you have blackened out one of the insects?
I could be blacking out a lot of things. I remember spiders that were 15 feet across that I would follow in an insect into a cave, and this spider would come out and eat me. And I to this day have nightmares about that spider.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's just like, I've heard other people talk about other insects there, but I don't remember them. Most of the people that I remember, their faces are gone. They're just invisible. And the people that were at Langley, I only see their legs. They stop at the hips. They've erased the memory of even above the hips. So I have no idea. But,
can I ask you?
Sure.
In that school in Germany, the German language school, or was it just regular school?
It was the same school that they taught their kids. So it was language and history and science and math and there was a class in several years. So it was a class with parts that was about extraterrestrials and which ones to avoid and how to kill them.
So you want children there?
I couldn't hear you.
The exceptional children. You were selected because you were one of the exceptional children that they had and was training.
So I wasn't just random picked?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know that I had the ability to go into other dimensions, and when I'm connected to the hyperspace drive on a ship, I can take objects with me. If I'm just here in this body, I can go, but I can't take things with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, from talking to other people who have memories, that's an unusual ability.
Mm-hmm.
So,
very much, yes.
And I have telepathic abilities where I can interact with telepathic races and then tell the humans what they needed to know out of all of the stuff in the download. And when I get angry, electronics fry. It's something I have worked to control because it's not cool to go into somebody's house and get upset over a memory or something, and then they have to replace all the circuit breakers. That's not cool. So I haven't started any fires that I know of, but I've blown a lot of circuit breakers. So I've had people ask me to prove that. And there was a set of interviews I did with a man named Don. And just remembering some of the stuff, I got so upset that the lights were flickering in his house. And we caught that on camera. But it's not something that I do just to prove I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't hurt people on purpose. So
Career.
I couldn't hear you.
And an exceptional career. I know people that really haven't been close to you are amazed at what they hear concerning you. And it's true. It's true. It is really true. It's amazing. You don't. There are so many others, but they don't come out. They haven't come out to express things that happen to them. Maybe they are still in denial. Maybe they don't understand.
I didn't understand. I would get flashes, and it's like I have always heard other people's thoughts, and I worked really hard to not listen in because people assume that they have privacy, and they don't. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, and they don't realize it. And they get really mad when you can hear them. And so I've tried to tamper it down and not use these abilities here. And I've been excommunicated by every church I've ever been in because they said I was a demon.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
Yes.
the fear among normal humans is outrageous. If you're even a little bit different, they're terrified of you. And so I had memories. One of the ways that they created an altar was by nailing me inside a wall and leaving me there. And I had nightmares about that for 2 decades. I would wake up in the middle of the night with blood-curdling screams and the neighbors banging on the walls. So I know that one, if it's not real, it was a damn good implant.
Have you had it taken out?
I've had enough MRIs that I think all the implants are fried. I have spinal injuries, and they do an MRI every couple of years. So any implants that I had would be long since gone. The magnets would have killed it. But yeah. The memory dump that I finally got most of it from came because of that NSA group.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea why they activated me. So that's a question that people always ask me when they're interviewing. Well, why did they activate you? I don't know. I don't know. So, it's always been yeah, I was this grandma with weird nightmares, and I made people nervous, and I could hear what people were thinking about around me, and I had to make sure I didn't react to what I was hearing. And since I've been public, some of the people who have interviewed me have been thinking some really, really nasty things while they were interviewing me, and it would be so vivid in my mind what they were thinking that I would respond to it anyway. And then "you can't read my mind" would immediately come out of their mouth because I was. And I have memories of other altars doing some pretty horrible things that the me here is very ashamed of. And I'm getting more memories from out there in space, things that I've done, because they didn't just take me that one first trip. They took me lots of times. And it's like each trip I get nastier out there. And that really bothers me here. It's like, I know it's an altar and it's not really the same person, but yet it is. And so I have a lot of conscience issues about it. Does that make sense to you?
That wasn't really you, the person. It was you, the one that trained.
Yeah.
Trained you.
Well, I have 2 that work for the CIA that I have memories of, and I'm sure there are others. And one of them I get bleed over while she's doing her thing. And it's what she does disturbs the hell out of me. And then I'm left wondering how she gets by with it. She slits a man's throat and walks out of his place covered in his blood, and nobody ever sees her. How the hell does she do that? You know, if I were a police officer and I saw somebody coming out covered in blood, that's the first person I'd stop. So I'm like, how the hell does she get by with this? And she's using my body to do this. And it's like, you know, those two, I know those alters' names. And one of them, I've been contacted by the CIA agent who runs her team. And that scared the hell out of me. Because that's not a nice crew. And I've had other people come up to me and say, well, you and I were at a warehouse last night and we were loading boxes into trucks and you were drunk. And I said, well, that explains why I woke up with a hangover. Because I don't drink. I'm diabetic. So it gets, when you have alters and you're dealing with all of this, it's like you're living 3 lives at once, and it can be really confusing keeping straight who is doing what, and not putting myself in a position to expose actual national security issues, but at the same time trying to tell people this shit is going on and it needs to be stopped. There's nothing that we do that cannot be done by consenting adults. Why do they have to kidnap and mind fracture children to do this?
You can train the young better. The older ones have already have their perceived ideas and thoughts on different things and people and likes and dislikes. So it's hard to train those who already been through quite a lot and seen quite a lot and think their way. It's hard to break that.
Yeah.
But the young, when they're young and impressionable, you can easily get them swayed to do what you want them to do, or just, you know, they're just so happy that you can say, oh, you did a good job today, and so they'll do better job.
Yeah, I actually told I had one boss that was just a total pain in the ass, and I told him flat out, you know, I'm like a puppy. You pat me on the head, and you'll get me to follow you anywhere. You keep yelling at me, and I'm gonna run and hide.
Right.
And the guy tried it and said, damn, she was right. But, you know, yeah, I can see that part of it. But that was probably in my file, too, that I'm like a puppy. Give me praise once in a while, and I'll do anything you want.
Right. You are so exceptional.
Well, out amongst the Germans, their favorite name for me is Missgeburt, which translates into an abortion that lived, because of the DNA modification that was done that gave me these abilities. So the Germans were not terribly happy I was modified. They were happy to have the abilities that I had, but they weren't happy that I was modified. So And when I came back here and had kids, my kids have a genetic disease, and I don't know if it was from my family tree or if it was from the changes done to me. And that bothers me sometimes, because the Germans always told me that I shouldn't have kids, that they would be deformed. And so I came back here and I had 3, and they all wanted to live in the hospital. So that one really bothers me. If I should have listened to the Germans and just not had them.
You can't believe everything when it's pertaining to you and your feelings and your desires to have children. You can't. It's like a hit and run. You can't determine whether this will come out this way or that way. So you just have to have faith that it's going to be healthy. And
well, I've done my family tree, and one of the branches, I've run across people from that tree, that family, and their kids have the same problem. So it could have been going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. But that didn't stop love.
No, that didn't stop love, and I really wanted kids at the time. So looking back on all the misery they've gone through, if I had known then what I know now, I might not have had them, because they've had a lot of unnecessary issues. But
Yeah.
I guess we have to live and learn, right?
Mm-hmm. And they're happy. And you made them happy.
I don't know. They're always mad when they talk to me.
Oh, you're a good woman. You're a good woman. Mm-hmm.
Well, I try to be a good woman. I'm not sure I always succeed. But if aiming for it means anything, I'm at least aiming for it. So.
When I saw you, not long ago, not many months ago, and I was so God. I said, wait a minute, I found it. I said, what in the world? I said, no. No. I said, that can't be.
Yeah. Daryl told me about how shocked you were. He says, my mama keeps telling me you're real. And then I touch myself and go, yeah, I'm real.
I said, wait a minute, I know this woman, but she died. She's dead.
Yeah, he said that you kept saying I had died, and
no. I said, I know her. I said, wow. I thought they did say that a lot of times there that people that they say is dead, you might years later still walking around.
My understanding is that cloning is real and has been since World War I. So I'm not sure whether it was her or me that was the clone, but one of us was, because she's dead and I'm not. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is the answer to me for not seeing you all these many years, and here you are, and I hadn't thought about a clone. Oh no, I still don't think so.
Oh no, you hadn't thought about a clone. Okay. Yeah, well, they did have, the Germans had cloning technology in World War I. By World War II, which is like 30 years later, they had a whole battalion of soldiers who were clones, that they had raised them. And so when the Germans won World War II, not the Germans in Germany, but the Germans in Antarctica, when they won World War II, some of that technology was given to the Americans because the Americans were supposed to supply people to the Germans in space, because they were looking to increase their genetic diversity. And so we were all messed with genetically, and it pissed the Germans off big time because they couldn't use us for what they wanted to.
Oh, good.
So, well, what they had wanted to use us for was to be colonists and stay with them. And instead, they didn't want our genetics contaminating their gene pool. Not German gene pool, but human gene pool. So, they were pissed as hell. So most of the Americans who are sent to work with the Germans have been genetically modified, and that has completely pissed off the Germans out there. You didn't know that? That's a side thing. That was one of the things that I was kidnapped by extraterrestrials in 2018, and they tried to kill me, and the Germans in space came and rescued me. And in the process of trying to figure out why the hell they were motivated to rescue me, because with them I'm a lieutenant, and my memory is they lost a ship rescuing me. Why would a lieutenant be worth a whole ship? And so I had to search through my memories to find out what kind of people these really were. Think about it rather than just, oh yeah, they're Germans, they got to be bad people. And the more I searched my memories, the more I found out they were just people. Some of them were assholes, but the majority weren't. That they were just people.
No more than researchers, scientists, as we are over here. No more, no less. They work together too,
Yeah, I know they're working together, and
Americans.
Out there, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, the Germans, they're all working together. They're just pretending to fight here so they can raise taxes.
Right.
And the Germans were really angry with what the Americans pulled at the end of World War II and tried to maintain a separate civilization because they didn't trust them. And they'll work together, but not real closely. And so when you hear people that were in the American programs talking about the Germans, it's like, well, nobody can get any information on them. And I'm like, guys, what am I, chopped liver? And it's like, no, you're a woman, you're an old woman, you can't possibly have served with the Germans. No. And I'm like, really? Yeah. When I was in high school on Earth, I took German. I was drawn to it like a magnet. And it was really easy for me. So I took several years of it. And when I got into junior college, they said, well, you have to take all these theses, and and 2 years of a language was part of it. I said, okay, I've already started German, I'll stick with that. And my professor was from Berlin. And at the end of the time, he goes, well, if you were dropped off into Germany right now, you'd be able to make your way around, and within a month or two, you'd be talking like a native. But don't ever tell anybody that you learned German from me. And I go, why? And he said, because you have a Schwabish accent, and I do not know how in the hell you got a Schwabish accent from me. Schwabish is the dialect they spoke on Mars. So, everybody that I know that served with the Germans, and there's a lot of us, most of them paid attention to how I was treated. They were like, if you're going to be treated well, then we'll come public, but if you're not, we aren't. We'll talk to you, but we're not going to be public. And I go, well, that's reasonable. And so I know in the neighborhood of 50 people who have served with the Germans. So I'm not standing here by myself, the only idiot that remembers them. There are others, and they have similar memories. Not every detail matches up. But when you're talking about people who've been mind wiped and had, memories suppressed, for us to have any memories that overlap is remarkable. I mean, that technology is meant to hold. And for so many of us, for it to have failed, it's like, I'm one of the ones with the most memory, but it's because the NSA unit used my remember code for that prime altar, the first one they split off. And once I started reintegrating that one, the rest of that, the 13 that were below it, they all started breaking loose whenever I remembered that first one. Now, going to another prime hasn't been as easy, but I've reintegrated 32 altars, and that's been a lot of work. I've done that since 2014. So with the altar comes the memories. And once you've reintegrated that altar, those memories are, you did this. And that's why I'm having trouble with the conscience part.
When you were on Mars, the scientists, horticulturists, they had different plants and fruits.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed as though it was down more than up with their growth growing up there.
Yeah.
The vegetables and fruits.
We grew things underground, and we lived underground because the sandstorms created static electricity and would fry the electronics if you were above ground. So we lived underground and had grow lights, hydroponics, and our food was grown. We called it a garden, but it was like a warehouse in a cave, and we would have stacks of hydroponic plants growing with basically grow lights. And after we would go to school for so many hours, and then we would work in the garden and harvesting and that stuff. What I remember is that the majority of our food was grown that way. And they had, you know how they're trying to make artificial steaks now from growing them from cells? Yeah, we were doing that on Mars, but with pig. We were growing pork, and it was cells. We didn't grow an animal. We were just growing, it was like a rack of pork cells, and every so often we would shave it. And that night we would all have pork for dinner.
So how did they prepare it?
How did they prepare it? They treated it like we do hamburger. Sausage was a big thing, and it was consistent with German cuisine. So yeah, they would treat it like we do hamburger and just shape it, and I wasn't allowed in the kitchens there, so I don't know how they prepared it in the mess hall. But when it was served, it was like a patty. And that was a treat because the rest of the time we were vegetarian.
Uh-huh. And fruit?
We didn't get a lot of fruit. One of the worlds they had colonized, they would bring in shipments of this stuff. It looked like bananas, but it tasted like strawberries. And I have no idea what they called it. That I don't have full memory of the language, but it looked like, you know, the little red bananas that you can get at the store sometimes. It looked like those, but tasted like strawberries. It was really good. We didn't get them very often. They were a treat. We didn't get chocolate. We didn't get coffee. We weren't supposed to have alcohol, but we had beer and vodka. I mean, people are people, right? No matter where people are, they always have hooch. True?
That's true. That is true.
So, in fact, one of the assignments I was on in space, we were pretending to be bootleggers, smugglers. And so we had this ship that had been commandeered from another world. So it didn't look like a German ship. And the guy that actually owned the ship had been commandeered to keep it running. And he was this. He looked like an Ewok. And, you know, from Star Wars, he looked like one of those little guys. And he was the angriest son of a bitch I have ever encountered. And we would go into a place, and my commanding officer he's 6'4" and large. He's not a small man by any means. And I'm not little. You know, I'm 5'7", and out there I would weigh 130 to 160, depending on circumstances. And I was normally at the 160, and they kept me at age 25. So I was pretty and young. But in this particular mission, I was supposed to be rough. And we would go off into some colony world, and we would find the bar, and we would trade bootlegged American whiskey for information. Our hold was filled with Johnny Walker Red. So we had basically an endless supply of this stuff that the Germans had gotten from the Americans for some trade they had done. So we were using it to get information on what was really going on in these colonies. So that was one of the missions I was on. That particular tour was 20 years instead of my usual 60, because I had started off in an American unit and my contract had been purchased by the Germans. And the American units don't teach their people like the Germans do. The Germans spent 10 years teaching me like one of their own. That's quite an investment. That's one of the things that I had to think about when they rescued my ass was, they could have just as easily have immediately put me in a ship like some of the American groups do. Solar Warden is manned by mostly children. And instead, the Germans put me in school and educated me.
You were learning.
I learned a lot of stuff that was very different from what's here taught. And I've been writing a book about kind of the how we got here. And I've been looking for references for the history that they taught me on Mars. And there's a lot of propaganda out there, but you can still find where what the Germans taught me was correct. You can still find verification that that's a real story. Where a lot of what I was taught in California in the 60s was just pure bullshit. So I'm sitting here with both versions in my head, and it's okay, which one's true? And I'm finding most of the time what the Germans taught me was actually true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of scary, because they're teaching today's kids even less truth than they did when I was in school.
What you learned.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I have to spend time quiet and searching my memories for it to come up. It has to be time that I'm not. Since I've been public, I get people that they contact me because they're having dreams that don't make sense. Well, they'll spend hours a day, every day, writing me all of this stuff, and then they want me to tell them what they're remembering, and I'm like, how many of us whistleblowers have you been listening to? Because this is Randy's story, and this is my story, and this is Veronica's story. And I don't hear anything new there. So there's a lot of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are all reaching out to me because they think it's glamorous, and it's not. This is the stuff of nightmares. So there's another bug I'm supposed to remember.
Did you say?
There's another insect from Mars I'm supposed to remember besides the ant ones. They
Right.
were like 9-foot tall ants. Those things were huge.
Flies.
Flies. Okay. I don't remember the flies, so I haven't heard anybody else talk about flies there either. So they probably just blocked those completely from us, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. You know, because that's you would think that would be the common one that you would come up with, rather than a spider or an ant. I'm talking. Excuse me. You would think that and that was one of the major research insects that they used, was the fly.
Yeah, I know they used a lot of flies in biology research on Earth. I just don't remember them on Mars. I remember there being a lot of what I considered vermin. There were snakes, there were rats, there were lots of insects, and it was like the landscape was crawling. Even though you didn't see a lot of plants for them to eat, they were feeding on each other. And it was just like the landscape was just, in the daytime, it was just crawling. And at night, everything stopped because it was so cold. But everything that could went underground at night. But the place was just crawling with stuff. Every insect or reptile that you can imagine. And some of them are quite big. I don't know how they've been missed by the various satellites, the orbiters. I don't know how they've missed these beings, because some of them are huge. There's entire herds of reptiles that they'll just cross the landscape, and it picks up a dust storm, you know. I've heard some of the others talk about grasshoppers, and I don't remember grasshoppers either. I'm not saying there weren't any, I just don't remember them. And you would think that, you know, Andy Bajago talks about grasshoppers as big as school buses. You'd think I'd remember that.
Well, it is that large.
Well, you know, it's one of those things. It's like fishermen. You know, you start off with a fish this big, and before you're done, it's 6 foot long. Yeah. I mean, that isn't that the way humans do?
Tell
Yeah.
me, how do you?
What?
How do you sleep? Do you have restful sleep?
No.
Huh?
No. I have to take meds to sleep at all, and I will sleep maybe 6 hours, and then I wake up with some sort of flashback kind of nightmare. And some of them are from ships, some of them are from the 2 CIA altars, some of them are from other altars that the people who own them are so fucking dangerous that I won't even mention them. I've got, at any given point, I've got close to 100 altars running around, doing stuff mostly off planet, and I get bleed over from them. And when I'm asleep and my conscious mind is at rest, that's when they bleed over the worst. So last night, because I have the interdimensional capabilities, last night I was visited by an interdimensional being who wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do. So he's in some sort of a prison and he wanted released. And as soon as he showed up, I had a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, like this was a being I wanted nothing to do with. And so I woke up scared and pissed. And I'm like, okay, I have an interview with Doris today. I need to get out of this attitude. And Doris is a good lady. She does not deserve to deal with that attitude.
No. You're a strong woman. You know
Thank you. Yeah, but I get up and I tell my partner Lou about the nightmares before, and because I figure if he has to deal with the attitude, he might as well know what it was about. You know?
No, when they had a movie many years ago, was it Thousand Leagues Under the Sea? It was like a sea monster. I think it was a movie too. But it may have been the movie that scared me so. But for months, I could not sleep by myself. And then even sleeping by myself as a child, I couldn't sleep. Even if I had my mother, sleeping with my mother and my dad, I would wake up and the thousand leaves on sleep. Oh, and I would be frightful, screaming, and my dad would say, "Go back to sleep. Ain't nothing to you with your daddy, and ain't nothing gonna bother you."
Yeah.
Next night it'll come back up again. But it was that was a frightful time.
Well,
Especially when you see
those movies were pretty realistic for what we encountered. I mean, as far as when we were kids, some of those movies were really well done. I mean, we look at them now and think they were cheesy, but at the time, that was state of the art.
It was. Sure was.
So, you know, they were really good for their time. Speaking of movies, we have Netflix. And I had been avoiding watching this one particular movie because I knew about how I had been trained. But we went ahead and watched American Ultra. And I'm sitting there, and my partner was DOD in Nam. So you know what he did there. And hey, I had to have somebody tough that could live with me, you know? A wuss wasn't going to cut it. So we're sitting there on the couch, and we've got this. Well, everybody else will think it's a small screen. It's 42 inches. And we're sitting there on the couch and we're watching this thing. And I'm like grabbing hold of his hand and digging in. And he says, "Penny, chill. Penny, chill." And I go, "Oh." It was like really triggering. They'd go through and he'd be this hippie dude, and it was hilarious. "Oh yeah, your pothead boyfriend." It ended up taking out an entire crew of assassins. Yeah, right. Simple pothead boyfriend. So yeah, and like I was the neighborhood granny that used to babysit kids. Those kids were safe with me. Wasn't nobody gonna hurt them. But yeah, yeah. That was a seriously disturbing movie for me. So yeah, I have to be careful what I watch because I end up stressing, and we do have a small pillow that I can embed the fingernails in, that I'm not doing any harm to anyone. So yeah, so I pulled that out and I was like, and Lou's going, damn, I'm glad that wasn't my hand. So yeah.
You know, I was thinking this morning, I'm not going to change the subject.
Okay.
Of the fruit, you were I asked you about, did you have, what would you eat, what did you eat? And this morning I had an orange and an apple. The both had been washed, and I started with the orange.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating the orange and looking at TV and sitting on the side of the bed, and I ate the orange. It was very sweet and very good. And I said, well, let me get an apple. Get an apple. The orange was refreshing. I got the apple, and I told my son about it, and my sister. I got the apple. I wiped it off. It's been washed too, and I started eating the apple. It was so sweet. It was real good. The apple was real good. But I noticed, something had me to notice. Put it away. I had a little voice that had me to notice. You ate the orange, and it was good. Nothing, no change, just a sweet orange. But you ate, and now you have eaten the apple, and you're getting warm. That's different. That's different. And I was saying,
Yeah.
I said, this is right. I said, I ate the orange, and the orange was sweet. It was good. It was just nice. And turned around, and I ate the apple, and I started getting real warm after having eaten the apple. My face started getting real warm. And I told my son that. I said, you know, I said, what is that? What do you think caused that? One is sweet and cool, and the other one is sweet. And I said, I have never noticed that about an apple, but I never had to compare an apple and orange. But having orange, but see, maybe I need to change up and eat the apple first, and then eat the orange and see if there's a difference. But I haven't.
If you eat the apple first, the orange won't be as sweet.
So not being sweet?
Yeah.
But the apple gave me a temperature. It's as if I was having a hot flash. So at my age,
hot flashes. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I'm past the change too. So hot flashes are part of the world. Yes.
So much. Well, Mom said, why don't you call ask Douglas Dietrich to call into the show and to give, and maybe he'll have an answer. So,
Douglas is on his own show right now. He put this thing on my Facebook wall, the advertisement for it, and he has 2 books that are out, and one of them is about vampires, and that's what he's talking about today. Vampires. So Mr. Dietrich is really busy today. But yeah, I'll ask him your question, as soon as I know he's off air, and I'll pass word through.
So the apple is what gave me the hot flash.
Okay.
Or it could have been the combination of both of them together.
That's possible.
And I think it was just the apple by itself, because I didn't have that surge of heat, but from the apple. But I thought that was so strange. And then it was a voice telling me to notice the difference. So I said, well, fine.
Actually, I've been surprised that Mr. Dietrich has not joined us, because he has mentioned that he would love to talk to you.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. He would love to talk to you. Mr. Dietrich is a bit of a character. He's a lot of fun, but he does enjoy trying to shock people.
Okay.
I'll just put that out there. He does enjoy trying to shock people.
Okay.
But yeah, he can be a hell of a lot of fun. And he's interesting, and most of the time he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, that's always a surprise when you find someone that knows what they're talking about most of the time.
And have you, and I know I haven't been talking to anyone that have seen the wall.
The wall?
The wall.
Oh, no. Yeah, that wall.
I know they don't take names down after they put them up. They chip them in this stone wall.
Once they chip them into the stone wall, they're pretty much there. But who what?
How many were there of you that was on? I was telling you about on that wall. About 9 or 10 people, right? That died.
It was the newspaper article that was online described that there were 10 people, including the pilot, and everybody had thought that the pilot was a newspaper reporter, and it was this plane full of CIA agents was what gave him away as a CIA agent. And from the time frame, late 84, and we died in Nicaragua, we were probably part of the Iran-Contra nonsense.
Yeah.
So,
you did. You were there.
Yeah, that's when I read the article. That was what stood out to me, because when we talked about it before, I go, okay, this is going to be something that will have been in the press. So, and you had said there had been articles that had been all over the papers. So I think it was Washington Post that I found it on. It might have been New York Times. But Google didn't have that far back. So I went to Yandex out of Russia, and they found it. So it's amazing. Russia has more information about the CIA than Google does. Yeah.
Google.
Yeah. So all of the censorship that's on the mass social media now is also applying to Google searches. So what can I say? If you want to find the truth, there's DuckDuckGo, there's Yandex, but on Yandex you have to deal with porn. And there's something called Start Page. And so those are the places that you go if you want to find something without being tracked or censored. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I research things, and there are several projects that I have researched that they didn't want me to research, and they fried my C drive. So I will not name those projects because I don't like getting people hurt.
That's enough, huh?
Yeah, people, that's enough. Me losing a C drive is plenty. I have gotten the point. So, I may be subversive, but I really don't have a death wish.
And you've been around enough, but you're not ready now to go yourself again.
I don't want to go out there yet. No. And what they would do is they would shut down me here, but I would continue elsewhere. I have been informed by the German High Command. They thought this would be reassuring. Okay? This was the context. They thought this was going to reassure me. It's, if we figure out that you've died, we are going to time travel and get you and put you in regeneration, and you will come live with us.
Oh, man.
I'm like, oh God, I can't even die.
Regenerate you.
Regenerate me. Oh, they have that technology. It's a tube. It, when you touch it, it could be glass or plexiglass, but it's not see-through.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're inside, you're in this gel, and it's body temperature, and you're floating in it, and you eat it, breathe it, everything into it. And they clean it between people theoretically. But I said theoretically. I've not worked in that department. But they can bring you back from the dead for up to 4 months. The longer you're dead, the more memory you'll lose. But they can bring you back in up to a week, you'll have full memory. And I've woke up in that tank many, many, many times. But that's their medical treatment. It's a tank, it's 3 meters tall and 2 meters across. And there's a thing on the outside of it, looks like a tablet, you know, the computer tablets. Looks like that, and it has a slot where you can put a blood sample in. And you put in the blood sample, and it will match the DNA in the blood sample. And it will repair the body in the tank to match the DNA. And if the tech is experienced, they can fix genetic problems. Like, we don't usually have to wear glasses out there. You know, here I'm farsighted, so I have to wear glasses to read on a computer screen. Either that or make the print huge. So, I used to do beading, but my eyes have gotten bad enough that it's really difficult. But I don't have that problem out there because they pop me into regen and they fix my eyes. And when they pick me up for service, the first thing they do is pop me into regen. They make me 25. They make me 160 pounds. They fix my eyes. They fix my feet because I have trouble walking. And I match my genetic profile for age 25. The whole time I'm there. And then, when they're done with me, they had a recording of what I looked like when I came in, and they matched that to send me home. And I'm like, couldn't you fix something? Couldn't you leave me in some kind of better shape? Well, no, you've been to the doctor too much. You're too well documented. If you have all these things wrong with you, and if one of those suddenly goes away, you're going to be in a government lab somewhere.
Wow.
That's what they've told me, flat out. If we fix you, you will end up in a government lab, a prisoner, and an experiment for the rest of your life. We're not going to do that to you because we like taking you. And I'm like, oh shit. I have no idea how many times I've actually been taken. None. Because I know there was one time period, 45 days, that I was taken twice a night, every night. And those were 60 and backs. And, it may be just minutes here, but when you're taken and you're gone 60 years and you come back and then you're taken again and you're gone 60 years, you wake up the next morning, you're damn tired. Your soul's tired because your soul remembers doing all that. This body may not have done it all the way it is now, but you're tired. So I have no idea how many times they've actually taken me, because for so many years I wasn't even aware. I thought I was just having nightmares. So I don't have memories of all of them. And the ones I do, I have to do a lot of work to live with the memories. And then I come out and some asshole will say, well, you're just making it up for attention. So.
It's good to come out with the memories rather than to keep them in. And say, better to express yourself, to let it out, like you do.
Yeah, I wasn't going to. I was going to I would have been perfectly content to be in a small group of people who had memories of the same thing and just talk amongst ourselves. I would have been perfectly happy to do that. But somebody started shooting at me.
Uh-oh.
I got shot with energy weapons 3 times, 3 weeks apart. And with the third one, they shot me in my right kidney. And that thing still bleeds. And that's from 2016. And I talked to my partner and I said, they're going to kill me. Whoever this is, they're going to kill me. And, Bill Cooper said that if you know they're going to kill you, it's to hide in the spotlight. So that way, if they do kill you, it verifies what you said. And that makes them think about it. And I was contacted by a woman. Her email said DOD, but she said she was NSA. And she set me up to psychically bring in someone she said was a rogue agent. Well, this so-called rogue agent had been told I was the rogue and that she was to kill me. Short version of the story is I'm still here. But
and you said but when you were at the CIA, you were DDO.
So, DDO. Okay. Another thing to look up. Okay. So, there's a lot more to this alphabet soup than people out here know about. Because before I talked to you, I thought the OSS had been disbanded. And then I did my homework and found out there were 2 OSSs and only one of them had been disbanded, that the other one is still ongoing. So there was Strategic Services and there was Scientific something or other. And the scientific one is still ongoing and I thought it had been replaced by DARPA, but apparently they are parallel and competing. So, yeah, I'm finding more and more and more and more depth to all of this mess. Like the NSA, I thought it was translators and spies. Come to find out, they have the Labyrinth Group. And the Labyrinth Group interacts with the Cordium. And the Cordium is the group of extraterrestrials that leaks technology to the American government. And they hand it directly to the military-industrial complex. So, yeah, every one of these groups is doing shit, and it's like this big round robin, and the people like me are basically passed around. Have I got that pretty close?
Yes.
Yes, I do have that pretty close. Okay. I have found more shit at the bottom of this particular barrel than anywhere else on the planet. And I've been digging for a long time trying to figure out where I fit into this world. And I've been contacted by agents. I've been contacted by secret society members. I've been contacted by folks that had absolutely no reason to even know I existed. And none of them will go on record. They've all got shit to tell me. And then I have to sort through. I've come up with this concept because I was reading Viking stories. Vikings had this concept called a hero's song, where you would go into battle and the survivors would go get drunk and they would sing their hero's song about how wonderful they and their side were and what wonderful heroes they were, whether they were the aggressors or the losers or whatever. It's their hero song because they were a hero, because they survived. And I'm looking at all this stuff and going, all of these people are singing their hero song. They're all telling the story to make themselves look like heroes, to make their faction look like the good guys. And realistically, from the outside, there's not a whole lot of difference between them. They're just competing organizations working for the same people.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you were 5, 6, 7, and you started your training.
Okay.
That's when you went in. Wasn't there, I think there was a little boy, he might have been younger than you, maybe 1 year younger, And there was a little girl, another little girl. Do you remember them having been in the same place with you most of the time?
I remember there being a boy that was a year older than me,
Older.
and he was effeminate. Okay, he wasn't gay, he was effeminate. And he was gifted with language. And when we got to Mars, because we were at Langley, if I've got it right, I was number 7 and he was number 5. Okay, if I've got the memory right. But number 5 went to Mars with me, and he is who set up the Mars Internet. The one who set up their computer system so that if you had a job to do, you could get all of your training on this internet, and it would be in a language you could read. He set it up in English, Russian, and German. And he was incredibly talented at that, intuitive on the differences between the 3 languages, and he could switch from one to the other, and he sounded like a native in all of them.
Oh, wow.
And he was the NSA agent they chose to activate my memory.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew I would trust him, because we'd spent all that time together. But we were on Mars together, and he was actually the reason I got moved off Mars, was because I panicked when he was captured by the Raptors. Instead of taking the coordinates and having someone else handle the situation, I panicked. And because I was chipped into the computer interpreted my panic as fire all weapons, and turned what should have been a simple rescue into a big disaster. And it had to be handled with time travel instead of just a simple rescue. So that was what I got shipped off Mars about. And it all circled around number 5. But yeah, he was a year older than me. And even on Earth, he was a beautiful, beautiful man. He was approaching 60 when I knew him here. And he was still a beautiful, beautiful man. And he was killed after I went public. So you told me in one of our priors that he was in trouble for other reasons, that I should not take it as my personal guilt, but it is what it is. But I remember there being...
Now tell me about that. The young girl now. This is a little girl. She was quiet.
I remember there being...
She being real young.
Other women in my flight group, because we were all women in it. And I remember there were a group of 12 of us who were sent from Langley to Mars, and we bunked together. And I remember there were girls with us. This
one was always... I don't see the closeness, but she was always with you, like shadowing you. She was always there, even when you went to another planet. She was there with the group. she was like a loner, like she was there.
I don't remember someone like that. I knew there had to have been people that I was close to. I just don't remember.
Okay. It'll come to you.
Okay. I've had people tell me that they remember me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had women who are the age to be my daughters tell me that I rescued them from being killed. But I don't remember it. I do remember being on a Kruger team. Kruger's a mercenary company. I remember being on a Kruger team with James Rink and a woman named Rochelle. And there should have been a fourth member of the team, male, but I can't remember who he was. And Penny, woke up in that altar and panicked and blew up the factory that we were visiting. And we were all killed and had to be brought back. So, yeah, I'm aware that out there where I don't have a filter on my abilities, that I have done some serious damage. And that actually happened because there was a big black spot that appeared on Mars, and NASA is saying it was a volcano, but it was where I blew up a lab factory. They were creating cyborgs out of humans kidnapped from Earth, war refugees, prisoners of war, that kind of thing. And when I woke up as that person and I'm looking around, I just did a complete panic and the abilities just went. And after that, James Rink here on Earth yelled at me, "You got us killed. We were going in for upgrades on our equipment and you killed us all." I'm like, alrighty. I knew I blew the place up. I didn't realize I killed anybody. So, yeah, when you know these people, real world, and they're like, Penny, what did you think you were doing? Panicking? Just panic? So they put some sort of a brake where on me, like car brakes, so that I still cross over and know what the altar's doing, but I cannot take action like that when I do. So I can't blow things up anymore. They figured out that I was having an issue. I see you laughing. Yeah, that's what happens when you have a bunch of altars and they're flipping back and forth, and some have these abilities, and you're stepping into something and you don't know what that altar's abilities are. I'm stepping in and it's a new body and I have no idea what the hell that body can do. And I start getting scared by what I see. Well, they're wired into a system that amplifies those abilities because they're weaponized. And I'm going in there and I have no idea what I'm doing. So, yeah, I can create a lot of havoc if there isn't a break. So, I understand why they did it. But, yeah, they all got put into new cloned bodies, and we got the upgrades we were supposed to be there for, and they're rebuilding the factory somewhere else. And by the way, that factory belongs to the Americans. So everybody who thinks that the Germans are the only bad guys out there, they're wrong. Everybody out there is just as bad as everybody else. Just like they are on Earth. Everybody here is just as bad as everybody else.
No difference.
No difference. From where I sit,
All people.
they're all people trying to do a job. In their own way, they're heroes. But you have to look at the way everybody interacts and realize that the combined efforts are not a good thing. Which, it's like whoever's running the show doesn't think about what the combined efforts are doing. You know? You've got all these secret groups out there with increasing amounts of power and money and decreasing amounts of supervision. And it's too easy for some shithead in an office, some bureaucrat to decide that his unit is going to do such and such, and there's nobody in the way to stop him. And it could go really deeply trouble before anyone would even realize what the hell happened. And that's one of the things that really bothers me about this is so many of these are special access projects where nobody is supervising them. Nobody is being held accountable for what they're doing. And it bothers me that so when I'm out there talking about my memories, people act like this is a great, wonderful thing. And I'm like, doesn't it bother you that some bureaucrat in some office can make a decision on whether or not you continue to live and you'll never even know who hit the button? You know what I mean? It's maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's what keeps consistently hitting me front and center is that all of these guys, and by guys, men, women, whatever ET is filling the desk, that nobody's got any accountability. Have you noticed that? Did you have that problem with accountability? Doris?
What are they going to do?
Huh?
What are they going to do? Who's controlling?
Who's controlling what? That's the biggest question I've got. Why I keep digging is who is responsible if it all goes down the deep end? Who's responsible? Who has the responsibility to stop the shit? You know, because they've cut the president out of most of it, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, the president got cut out when they killed Kennedy. and only a few of them knew anything after that. I would guess that Papa Bush probably knew more than the rest, but only because he had been CIA director. But since then, I don't think anybody's been given the full picture.
But it's there.
So, yeah, well, that's one of the big worries, is that nobody is accountable to anyone that's been public. We've got all these spooks sitting in the back corner deciding who's going to do what, and nobody from the public side has any input at all. You know, who's the boss? Yeah, that's the kind of shit that keeps me up at night. You know, Daryl will tell you I'm up all night sometimes because, yeah, I've got thoughts like that running through my head, and I know I can lay down, but I ain't gonna sleep.
That was an ear, wasn't it?
Yeah. That one's an earworm. It won't go away. So, anyway, we are at about that time, and I know there's a show coming after ours, and I don't see where Daryl went. Oh. Okay. So, I'm glad you came.
Oh, I'm so glad to have been here. We have, there are situations that, not for the consumption of everybody, that,
Yeah, I know.
the chance, and you can figure, everything.
Yeah, there are some things that I need to just chill about. Yes, I know. So, there's Daryl.
Yeah.
Odin, dear.
Think about that little girl I was telling you about.
I will think about that little girl you were telling me about and see if I can remember her.
Did he have it? Was that his sister? Could that have been his?
He had a sister, but I don't know if she was in or not. And she was younger than us. The version of her here on Earth just absolutely hates me. Yeah.
Oh, no.
It is what it is, right? I'm pretty sure that my brothers and sisters were probably in as well. And they haven't woke up at all.
Okay, in between her and her brother.
So, but yeah, she saw that I was in between her and her brother, yes. And I'd like to thank you for letting me know that most of what I do remember is right, and that there's a lot more that I don't remember. I knew I had big holes. So now I'm kind of getting the scope of some of those holes. And is there anything you wanted to say before we go off air?
No. When we get a chance to talk, we'll be off air.
Okay. Daryl?
It can't, and that can't be a show. Okay. He probably was listening in and thought we were still talking. Yeah.
Guys,
When are we off air now?
there I am.
Yeah, I'm off.
Yeah, no, hold on. I'm trying to find my sounds.
Are we still on?
Oh, well, I know there's that Ramona Speaks the Other Truth is supposed to be on soon, so we